All right. So today, what we're going to be covering is Revit project templates. We're actually going to cover a checklist that our technical staff has created, and we're going to review some of the best practices when creating a template. Have you been asked to create a company template in-house? Maybe you don't even know what a project template is or where to even start. So today, we're going to cover all of those topics. On the agenda, we're going to cover about project templates in Revit, creating them, of course. We have a checklist that we use to review, basically covering most of the basic standards that you need to understand when manipulating or creating your own custom in-house templates. Of course, you know, with anything that you create in Revit, there needs to be management and how to, utilize it best in your workflows. And we'll talk about those practices as well throughout this presentation. You need to understand where they are and how to troubleshoot them. And hopefully with the time allowed, I know there's quite a few topics here for the time that I have, but we'll try to get through as much as we can. Now, to start things off, let's talk about Revit templates and Revit project templates especially. This is what we're focusing on today. There are three types of templates within Revit that you might be aware of. For you guys that are used to Revit or that have a basic Revit understanding, you understand and maybe you have seen some of these different types of templates in your projects. Now, with project templates or the RTE format, there's a whole bunch of different templates that are provided in out of the box with Revit that you can start with if you have nowhere to go. And we'll talk about why templates are so important and why it's crucial to your workflows. Really, with templates and project templates in Revit, it's really the #1 rule. One thing coming from an AutoCAD-based workflow into Revit, initially, with my very early on experience, I didn't pay attention to the golden rule, starting with the proper template. And now, with all training that goes around, that's really the #1 rule in Revit. And we'll get into that and all the best practices throughout this session today. First poll of the day. First thing we want to do is kind of get a handle of where you guys are. Mark, you want to go ahead and start the first poll?
Sure, absolutely. So we're launching a poll here. So you should see it up on your screens. Again, we're trying to get a little bit idea as far as our audience, as far as where you're at, as far as templates. And we give you 4 different choices. Again, the one is as far as what type of templates you're using right now. First one, again, out of the box, the basic template that comes, with, let's say, with Revit. Secondly, you have a company template, but it's a very basic company template. Third, we have another company template, but it's very advanced and very customized. And then the fourth one is currently not using your Revit template. So I'm going to give you a chance to answer those questions. We got a lot of people voting, but I'll give you about 10 more seconds to vote, and then we'll close out the poll and show you the results. Okay, we're about finished here, so I'm going to close out the poll, and now let's share the results with everyone. So you can see here we got the percentage, kind of mixed across it. Like the majority, I guess, fall into the company template that's the basic. And then there's a small percentage that are not using a Revit template, and this is the place to be. So I'm going to hide those, and actually I'll turn it over to you, Gabe. And if you have any comments about that, then I'll hide it.
Perfect. I appreciate it. We'll come back to that at the end of the session. We'll come back to these questions or to any comments about this. It's good to know. It's a great poll there to ask.
Okay,
so moving on. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, please. Awesome. All right. So moving on with Revit, there's a couple of different ways, different approaches to creating a company template. Now, for you guys that are not currently using a Revit template, it's highly recommended that you understand the basics of why it's important. And I'll try to show that here as we get started in Revit itself. But understanding the 2 different ways of the basic ways of creating templates, you can start from scratch, right? Or you can start with the out-of-the-box templates that Revit provides. And that's really the best way that I've seen for most companies taking on Revit and implementing it, doing a phased approach. Don't try to start from scratch. Start from at least a good starting point with the out-of-the-box templates and then kind of build off of it. Now, we'll also take an existing project, and again, I'll just do this quickly and show you how to create a template from it, and then also how to transfer standards and how to utilize the out-of-the-box templates, again, to your advantage throughout your project's lifecycle. Now, there's a couple of other options for creating templates in Revit, and a couple of options that are one option here that's not in this presentation per se, but it's something that we'll talk about later. It's with the work sets, but we'll come back to that in a second. You can create a template that has a basic cartoon set, or basically a set of CDs where you add your levels, views, schedules, and sheets, and you rename them accordingly to the proper structure, following your current standards in-house, and then you apply all those views to the sheets, then it's all blank. So when a company or when a project gets started, you guys just start with this template, you save as, and start it, give it the project name, and then you start to actually go in and start just laying out your designs. Sometimes with prototypical work, you can also create a template that you can start off that has geometry in it. So if you have a building that is an existing, and you're going to have phases of this building where you're going to be adding on to it, renovating, additions, but in a phased approach through that construction, you can maybe create a template that has a base with base geometry in it as well. So there's a couple of different options for creating templates, and it can get pretty complicated. Now, keep in mind, working with a whole bunch of different companies throughout the United States with templates, everybody's different. Everybody has their own unique set of standards. Even firms that I've been in that have the same, same firm, 5 offices, they all work differently, all 5 different offices, and they all swear up and down that they all are based off of the same standards. They're based off of the same standards, but everybody's unique. So creating templates, it's not just going to be one and done. You might, throughout the lifespan of your Revit experience or Revit projects, you'll be creating new templates, updating them, and maybe creating or adding new to the list every time. Okay, let's do one more poll before I get into Revit and show you guys some Revit in action here. Mark?
Yes, sir. So we're launching another poll here. This one, you can see how many Revit templates do you have for the different type of projects you have. So please vote on that. Again, we'll give you a number of choices. You can try to cover everything here, and interested to see what you have as far as the number of templates. So we're just going to give you about 10 seconds here to complete the voting until we get most of the people voted, most of the participants. Oh, we got quite a few, but more people voted this time than last even. So it looks like it's leveled off, so I'm going to close that out, and then I will share the results with everyone. So you can see again, the majority of people here just have 1 template, but there's several that do have 2 and 3 templates, and even a small percentage that have more than 3 templates.
Awesome. All right.
So Becky, you
close that out. Thank you. All right, thank you guys for voting there. So now, again, what this presentation is about is this checklist that we've, our local techs here, or our techs here on staff have kind of worked their way through and created. And I want to review that first, and then we'll get into the actual, into Revit and understanding how, let me see here, how this works. Let me go into this checklist real quick and show you guys an example. So there's a couple of things, and if you guys are watching and taking notes, I want you guys to go and get your pen and paper out and get your notes ready, because we've got some things to highlight or note down. I'll throw some tips out throughout this presentation, so get ready. This here is the basic standard checklist, right? This is your template standard items that you can go through. And again, there's stuff that you can add here, you can configure, you can remove, you can edit, but we've created an Excel spreadsheet here to kind of cover all of the main categories that you need to review when double checking your template or when you're creating one, right? General settings, of course, you want to cover your units, graphic standards as well. Materials definitions, of course, that's one of the first things you want to make sure that you have defined in your templates. For views, you have starting views. We'll talk about in here, and I'll show you some examples of what you can use. I don't think those are utilized enough in Revit, but they should be. We'll talk about view templates and how important those will be to creating your templates so that you can expedite the process of making construction documents from a template right off the bat. So with a good, strong template, you can increase your productivity, pretty dramatically. And also with standards, of course, standards equals, saving time, right? Time savers. So you can, as you save time with a good, strong template, you can do other things and give a bigger, better product or design. Here's some model content, right? The types for your wall types. Those types of things can be configured in your templates. Now, not all families are loadable families. Should be loaded into your template, and we'll talk about best practices with families in a second. Annotation, just like in AutoCAD, right, where we had our styles and our dimension styles, text styles, those types of things, leaders, M-text, all those defined in our projects. You want to manipulate or configure those in a Revit template. And then, of course, some analytical or non-template items like material definitions, of course, and of course your analytical settings. So those things are some things you can configure in your templates. Now, you don't have to have one to rule them all, right? You can have a couple of different templates that are specific to the tasks or the studios that you guys have in-house. Maybe you have an educational template, a hospital template, commercial template, light commercial, different types of templates that you can create in Revit to kind of, again, expedite the start process of a project. Everything when you're starting a Revit project, everything really relies on a template, and it's really important to get that right early on. And real quick, for you guys that don't even use a template, this is a kind of a quick 101 when it comes to templates in Revit. So for instance, if I'm an MEP engineer and I start with the architectural template, and I'm not gonna do anything but just start some tools here. I'm gonna maybe try to place in some air terminals into this project. When I start the air terminal command, it gives me a no air terminals family is loaded, right? Those errors and these kinds of issues when you're transitioning into Revit or into a new workflow or to a new software solution can be super frustrating. I can draw some duct work, but then I'm getting errors that it doesn't show up. I don't see it on my screen. When I go into a 3D view, I see it, but then I can't do anything with it like change or transition, right? So same thing for an architect. If I was an architect or a structural engineer and I started with the wrong template and I want to draw or lay out my designs and I want to do a wall here and do some exterior walls and draw them out like this here. Notice that the walls allows me to create the walls in there, but they're grayed out. When I go to place a door in here, there's no door families loaded, right? When I go place a window, there's no windows. So these are the types of things that you're going to want to avoid early on when you're starting a project, so that it already meets your standards. It's configured to not have 1,000 or 100 different styles in there. There's just your custom applied software ASTI brick on metal stud or exterior walls, applied software interior walls. So you can set up your templates to have all of the basics in it to get started with. Now, when you start with the template, there's a couple of different things you need to understand about templates. First off, here are a couple of different ways to start. You can use the new project option here, and it brings up the dialog box to create a new project. Now, if I want to start a project from the construction template, by all means, all I need to do is click on OK. But if I'm trying to create my own custom template, here's your first tip I want you guys to write down. If you don't have a template to start with one of the ones out of the box with Revit. Now, if you're an architect, you're going to want to start with the architectural template. If you're a structural engineer, of course, start with the structural template. And for MEP or for mechanical and plumbing, mechanical, Now, if you're MEP, you have all three disciplines in-house. If you go to the browse option here and you browse to your libraries, you'll have a systems default, and you guys can write that down as a note for anybody that's an MEP engineer. This is the one that I would start off with as a MEP default that has all my duct work and pipes, all the basics set up in there for me so I can get started right off the bat. If you don't start with the proper template, especially if you're an engineer, your life is going to be miserable. And this architect, or the default one here, should be mainly only used for architecture. So keep that in mind as well. Now, if you don't want to start off with the template and you want to start from scratch, you could also go through the process of selecting none here and selecting project type and clicking OK. And just like if you guys are old school AutoCADers like me, this is kind of like the old school AutoCAD where you'd have a dialog box to set up your drawing when you started new. It asks you what unit you want to start with, of course, Imperial. But it's pretty bare bones. If you look in the project browser on the left-hand side, and as you guys are watching the screen, I know this is going to be kind of small, so I might shut off some of my palettes here so you guys can see this a little bit better. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead and turn off my properties palette so you guys can see this a little bit better. Also, here's a good little tip for you guys, 2018.2, the latest release. You can right-click over the browser and you can expand all, and it'll open everything up. You can collapse all, and it'll kind of bring everything down. So that's one of the new little features to look at when you're working in Revit now. So I do that collapse all to get them shut down, and then I can go back into them and just kind of show you what we have. There's no elevations. You know, this is pretty bare bones. There's not much to it. If I turn on hidden elements down here at the bottom, I just have my base point and survey points hidden down here at the bottom, like in any normal template, right? So again, keep that in mind. If you want to create your own templates, there's a couple of different ways and a couple of different options when you're choosing a template. Now, I'm going to go ahead and start with the architectural template here. And if I want to create a template, notice this process here. When I click open, and I save this or save as. Notice that when I start with the template option there, it gives me it doesn't even allow me to save as a project, right? So if you have a file, or if you received a file from somewhere, that's probably what it is. It's a template file, right? So if I save it as a template, you'll notice that it gives me the RTE extension. And I can either save it in my US Imperial library, or I can save it to an external source, you know, say in my Revit projects and, you know, wherever I got to go, right? Now, in the out-of-the-box templates, again, what you're getting in this architectural one are some basic families preloaded in here with some basic default settings. Now, for you guys that are just getting started with Revit, you know, you can use this and take what you can here if it's representing what you need to get through your first projects. And then once you're done with your first project, you can come back in and fix a lot of the stuff that maybe the north arrow isn't exactly the way you're used to seeing it, right? Take a phased approach. Don't try to take it all at once. Just, you know, start with these templates, get your projects done, and then make your changes as you need, right? There's some things that you're going to have to accept when it comes to Revit coming from a CAD-based workflow, but for the most part, you can do pretty much everything nowadays with Revit as far as standards go. Now, on the Manage tab up here, these are your settings, and this is, again, where a lot of the checklist comes into play. When I bring up the checklist here side to side, I'll show you this here. You can use the checklist to create views or starting views, and a start view is basically a drafting view that you use to basically save your projects in. And let me show you an example of these real quick. I've got a better view here. My projects. These are just basic views or basic projects or templates that we've created, and these are examples that I can demonstrate for you guys. Apologize for the upgrade on this one. Should have been upgraded. But with these templates, this is a good note for you guys to write down as well. You're going to want to manage your templates, and if you're going to create one from scratch, create it in the oldest version of Revit that you have. Right? Because Revit is not, or Revit is version specific, and it does not allow you to save as, right? So if you're going to go through the trouble of developing the templates and add all these configurations to it, or customize all these configurations settings, then you want to do it in the oldest version that you have, so that you can save a 2016 version of it, save a 2017 version of it, and then save also a 2018 version of it, right? Now, there is some talk or chatter out in the real world talking about the save as process from a project, which I'll show you in a minute how it might not work so well. But again, there's some things you can do to kind of alleviate some of the issues that you might have when you do a save as, but we'll talk about that in a second. Now here, this is just your basic company or starting views. Why would you want to save to this view? Now, not only because it has your company logo, it has the information on what it is, but here is where you can actually save like the version. You can save Revit 2016 so that you don't accidentally update it to the wrong version. Now, you could also use these starting views to save your project so that you're not regenerating a complex 3D view when you open up the project, and it doesn't take like that upgrade did a little minute ago. It took about a minute to upgrade. If you want to avoid that long of an opening or wait for opening the template, then you can save to these views or these start views, and it'll open up a lot faster. Now, if you're taking notes, on the Manage tab here, the View tab. Let's see, where's my Start view? It is Manage. Here it is. On the Manage tab, Manage Projects panel, you have the Starting View option here. And this is where you set the starting view in your templates. So if you want to set it to the company view, I set it to that company view there, and every time I save this project or this template, and let me talk about this here in a second. We're going to come back to options in a second. But every time I save it, a good thing with these landing pages is not only just so that it opens up faster, and it does make a big difference for performance when you're working with super large models that are getting out of control file size wise. Let's see here. When I go to open and I hover over that file, you now get to actually see it in the preview, right? So if I had R16, that would automatically tell me that that's a Revit 2016 version, right? So it's a good way to keep things in check. Another example here, let's see, example projects. Let's see, I had a good one here. It was this one. You can put the version of Revit, your build numbers. You can do something like this here in a starting view, so that you know exactly what version. If you're collaborating and you're working in a work shared project, everybody needs to be on the same build. Everybody needs to be updated at the same time with the right build numbers, so that you don't get sync issues or errors, right? So maybe that should be your landing page. You can do, the project page with the release on it. Let's see, what else did I have here? This is a complicated one that I saw online that you can create that has, use this as a bulletin board for your projects. You can have your logo, but you could put the daily tips in here, maybe information about the project or about the, the team, tech support issues. There's an update or a release or a service pack, who's on the BIM team, project information, client information, what are the model names or the file project names that you're working with in this project, maybe a message board between project managers, and then news and updates as well, so you can create that on a landing page, and that again is going to make your templates a little bit stronger, so that when you open up your projects, it's all consistent. You have all this information here that you can keep updated and update throughout the life cycle of your project. And again, this is the I in BIM, right? Just like schedules, it's the information. If you can coordinate or communicate the information to everybody on the team, keep everybody trained and educated on all these, standards and best practices, then, you're good, right? So again, these are just some examples that I created here to kind of just demonstrate what you can do. Now you could even use, make these as how-tos. We put in here how to use the templates, how to set up a project, right? I copy pasted images from PDFs, standards, you know, how do you name your views? You want to maintain standards. You can also do that in your drafting views to kind of give any user that's starting out a project, you know, okay, these are the SOPs for our company. Follow the drafting views first, and then delete them when you're done, right? Check them off the list. With a combination of, you know, creating a good template with your standards, your items here, you know, and you know, being as open as possible, or having as much information as possible in your projects can really help, you know, again, with production and expediting your project startup processes. Let me get out of this. So let's see here. So some standard information or settings that you're going to want to configure in a template is your basic project information, project settings. Now, view templates and families, there's asterisks here because view templates are going to be really critical to a project, because when you set up a project, you have to go through a whole bunch of graphic settings to make it look good so that you can distribute to the team the proper floor plans, ceiling plans, and so on, elevations, and so on, right? So you use view templates for that. So if you've gone through the trouble of creating them in project 1, all of your projects from here on out should be able to use those same view templates and in every project from then on out, so you don't ever have to go through the on-off, half-tone, you know, change the colors for this and that and all that good stuff. You can set it up early on in a project by creating view templates and putting them in your project templates, if that's not confusing. Not all families will transfer over or should be in your templates. And when we use the transfer project standards, not all families will transfer into a project from a template. So we'll talk about that in a second. Families should be loaded on an as-needed basis, right? And all custom families should be separate from the Revit library so that you can manage those as well if you need to separately in your templates. If you have a custom door family that's none of the door families in Revit out of the box are sufficient for your company standard. So you customized it, and it needs to be in every template, every project, every template from here on out. Well, those families need to be saved in a special location so that when you're upgrading your templates from Revit 2016 to 2018, those families are also being upgraded and being loaded back into that template so that it's make sure that it works correctly. We'll talk about that again in a little bit. Project views, again, your cartoon sets, you can set those up. Visibility graphics, that's where your view templates come in, your on-off stuff. Print settings for PDFs, Bluebeam, whatever you're using to print. And then, of course, your standard parameters. So you'll have a list of project parameters you can put in your templates. And then, of course, you'll carry along your shared parameters list, which is a separate TXT file that should come along with your project templates, or should reside in a network location. Talk about this here real quick. Now, when creating a templates here, let me do this. I'll do an example project here. We'll open up this architectural model. And say, for instance, you need to create a template from a project that's already been completed. I have this project here, and I need to go ahead and it's already done. This is what I need to use for my template. It has everything that I need in it. Then what you could do is you can go through the process of making it a template file. I can do a save as. The easiest way and the best way of doing this is just doing the save as an RTE. Let me show you what it looks like. Let me try this first. Now that it's an RTE file, I need to go in and clean it up. I can delete all my open views or all my views that I don't need. This stuff in here. I mean, I don't have to do this, but you can. Of course, you don't want all this stuff if it's not going to be reused. I can create a new 3D project from scratch, or a 3D view from scratch. Select all my geometry in here. Hopefully this works. I have my pinned elements selected. I'm not sure why I'm not able to select those. Anyway, what you'll do is you'll go in here and you'll be able to take your template that you just created. You will need to remove all of the geometry in your project, right? And then you can just go ahead and do a save as. Well, I would create a starting view. At minimum, the version, right? Maybe my logo or whatever, but at minimum the version. And then I would set up the starting view. And then save it as, again, template. And of course, make sure that the version is there. I'll just do 2018. All right. So that's one way of creating a template from a project that you've already created with the schedules and the sheets or the cartoon set already set up, maybe your legends, renderings, and views all pre-set up. Everything's in there already, right? You can do that by just doing a save as. So there's a couple of different ways. Now, when it comes to work sets, can you put in work sets in a template file? And the answer is no. But what you need to do, if that is your workflow or if that's necessary for you in-house, then what you need to do is you need to create a template like this here. So say, for instance, this is my template. I would do a save as project, and this would be called template with work sets, right? That's what I would use or create to create a work sets or to have preloaded work sets in a template file. And then every user that starts this project would you take this template with work sets and save as the new project and then get started with their process, right? So again, there's a couple of different ways of doing the exact same thing or getting through. That's a kind of a workaround. Now let's see, what else? Transferring project standards. Now there is a process here under the Manage tab. You have the ability to transfer project standards. Now, before we move to this, but when you create your templates and you removed all the geometry, you do not want to purge unused because you're going to remove all the definitions in that template. The point of using that project as your template or as your go-by is to keep all the definitions. So be careful with purge unused. Transfer project standards allows you to transfer some information from one project to another. And let me show you what I'm talking about. I'll open up this Office Center test project. And if for whatever reason I went in here and I purged unused and I purged all of these styles, right, out of this project. Well, what I can do is, and this is a trick to kind of get your styles into your project from your templates. What I can do is, and again, I'm sorry to make you guys dizzy here. Let me save this real quick. What I can do is I can go to the project that I need to redefine the information in and transfer project standards or click on transfer project standards. Then I can open up my company template and then I can transfer all of these items or settings for browser, building types, electrical, mechanical, dimension styles, fills, fill patterns, everything. I can bring in most, if not all, my styles and sizes and styles and types and redefine them in my project. So if, again, I'm the CAD manager or the BIM manager and trying to adhere to standards, and Joe keeps on changing the wall style to his own custom one, and his lights are yellow, but they should be blue, you know, or whatever, you can open up the project, open up your template, and override those settings. Now, you don't necessarily want to just do that willy-nilly. You know, that can cause a lot of problems, but just keep that in mind that this is a way, if you don't want to do check all either, but say, for instance, your MEP and your pipe styles have been removed or been purged out of the project by accident and you need to redefine your pipe settings, you can come back into your template, redefine your pipe settings back into your project, and you're good to go. Same thing for architecture. If you have browser organization or assembly code settings or dimension styles that are been purged out, that maybe in the latest project you've got a new dimension style that's arc style, and you want to bring that into the template, right? You can do it that way. So you can also manage templates using the transfer project standards. Now keep in mind, you're going to want one single person managing your templates in-house. You don't want to have 20 different people doing template stuff. Now you should be doing templates by committee as well. Have everybody have input about the templates, and then use that to kind of refine and make it and fine tune to make it your better to adhere better to your company standards. Let's see here. Now, some things or some objects do not transfer over in templates. So let me talk about those real quick. I think we have them in here. So for instance, legends. If I had a legend in here, I do have one in my, let's see, let me open up this other model here. Now, this is kind of like a cartoon set here where you could have your pre-set up sheets, but for your legends, I have these legends that you create in Revit, and I don't need to fix that, but you can, if I right click on a legend here, you'll notice that I cannot save this to a file. Now this right click method in your project browser is typically how you will export to a file in Revit. So, or export information out of your projects to use in other projects, or to save into your templates, right? So I could save to a new file, but you notice that the legends don't allow for that. Now schedules do. So if I wanted to keep this space schedule available, I could do save to new file, and I can save it out externally to a RVT file, right? And I put it on my server somewhere under my schedules, and then I can bring that schedule into any project. Cancel out of that. Get back into this legend. Now, what do you do with legends? Now, you can do a couple of things with legends. You can actually create a legend, and you can copy paste. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. I can copy to clipboard, and in the new project, you can paste the legend into there. So that's how you would get legends across, using the copy paste method. And then with schedules and those, you would right click and save to a new file to get them out. Now to get the schedules into a project, you go to the insert tab up here. Let me get into a floor plan view. Cancel this warning. On the insert tab up here, that's where the import panel, insert from file comes into play. Here is where you can actually import views from a file. And I do have some schedules created in my project here to show you. I go to my example project. Of course. No, might have got rid of them. But if I had a Revit schedule like this here, I might delete it out of here. You can use the insert from file, insert view from file, pick on that room and area schedule, and bring it into your project. Boom. Right. So you can get schedules back and forth. Now, again, you might not use these schedules or put the schedules in a CD or document them or what have you. It doesn't matter. These schedules can be very informational. They can give you lots of good information for maybe people that are not even in Revit, but that need information about the project, right? That are admin or whatever. For if it's designed or if it's in Revit, you can create a schedule for it, right? So again, you can export them out. If to get schedules out of Revit into an Excel file, out of your projects into like an Excel spreadsheet to review, you can use the export option, report, to get that out. in Excel. It's not a two-way street, it's just a one-way out, but this is another way of getting your schedules out for review, maybe for a review with the committee to go over, you know, this schedule is not up to our standard, we need to tweak this or that. We don't use number, we use NO. These shouldn't be uppercase, lowercase, it should be all caps. You know, we don't say upper limit, we just call it, you know, top limit or something different. You can do all these changes and then, you know, again, kind of fix them in your templates. All right. So transfer project standards, again, include system families, but not component or loaded families. You can transfer line weights, materials, view templates, and object styles, right, which are super important for graphic standards. For MEP, all your settings, your MEP settings come over. Your annotation, color fills, and fill patterns, right, your hatch patterns all come across, and your print settings, which can be pretty important, especially if you guys are working through projects and upgrading software and just getting bigger and better products, right, or software solutions. Again, you can save as the RTE, make sure you archive it before you make changes. You could also create groups of geometry. So if you needed to take out, say for instance, work. So I need to save these elevators out of this project. Oops. Come on, Gabe. Let me pin that down. My mouse doesn't want to play today. All right, here we go. So say for instance, I wanted to save these out of a project. I can create a group. And in my project browser under model groups, I can also do this for detail groups. I have this elevator group now that I can actually save group, or I can save it as a group out of Revit. And again, this is how I would get work out if I needed to save work from one project to another. So again, can help your templates, but just be careful when you're doing this stuff because you want to make sure what you're getting. If I just needed to edit this family, you know, I wouldn't do all that, or I needed this family. You can edit the family, right? It opens up the family, save as family, and put it into your project and then load it back into your templates or whatever, or your project. So and then place them where you want. But if it's exactly this layout and you need this specific group of elements, you can create a group and save it out and have them in your templates as well. You just want to minimize the amount of groups that you have because again, these are performance hogs and they will eat up as much RAM as you can give it, or they will degrade your performance in your model. So be careful when it comes with groups. Groups are awesome and powerful early on and through what, 80–90% checks, but right towards the end of a project, you want to ungroup as much as you can so that, again, you might see better or improved performance. Now, with those drafting views, right, or the start views, what you do is, and this is best practice, is you always go into that drafting view or that start view, you close it in Windows, and you save your progress or your projects, right? And this is, again, should be a habit that everybody gets into when working with your projects, and that's why you set them up in your templates. So you can always view the project, maybe the information or the version on your recent screen. Now that we've created templates or I've showed you examples here, there's also some management options here under file options where you can actually go under your file locations here. And if you notice on my projects here, I have construction, architectural, structural, and mechanical. Well, for instance, if I wanted to just to have the architectural and I wanted it to be the first option, I can move them up and down, move construction out of the way, and leave structure there. And when I click on OK, look over here on the left-hand side or on my projects, now they're available in that order. Now, also, I can go in under options for file locations and add my own templates. So I'll go into, I'll use this one, company standard template. And I've added it to my list. I'm going to move it up to the top. again, for users, if you guys are the setup people, you can set this up so that you only give them the right options. They don't have the wrong options to choose from and get started incorrectly, right? You get rid of the out of the box ones if you have your own company one. If you don't, at least give them the right discipline. All right, I know I'm running out of time here. Give me a second. But there's now the list or my company template there to start with, and I know where I can, I can click it right off the bat. That can be saved onto a network location. Now, let's see here. Revit templates are stored on your computer under your program data, Autodesk RVT templates, and I have generic templates, which I'm not sure where those come from. I have the Imperial templates and the metric ones, which are your pretty typical install templates from or out of the box ones that I was talking about. All right, it's poll time. Mark?
Absolutely, this is Mark. And so we have one last poll here. I know we're running out. We got like it's 1:21, 9 minutes left. Let me launch this last poll. And how often do you update your Revit template? How often do you update your Revit template? They get once a year, again, every new release, after every project's completed, or never. So I'm giving you a chance here to get your vote in, give you about 10 seconds, and then we'll close it out. And I know we just got a few minutes here. So I'm going to close it out here real quickly so we got some more time for questions. So here is the closeout. I'm going to share with everybody so you can see here the answers. It's kind of a split all the way across as far as how often you release it between the 4 different options there. So I'm going to hide this and back to you, Gabe.
Awesome. And every new release is a good option. Every completed project is a great place to pick up or do a review by committee, because again, you might have fixed things or changed things, or Revit might have improved in the program to kind of go back to a standard that you might have kind of accepted in Revit, but you want to maybe go back to AutoCAD, and now Revit has that availability or that capability. So something, again, every project is a good way to kind of update your projects or your templates. Once a year is good. Never is good if you don't do a lot of different types of projects, or I don't know if you would never update it, but you want to keep a version, at least a version for every year, right? That's always good to do. Now, some best practices again for templates before I cut loose here or I'm done. Again, set up reviews by committee periodically to check, as best as possible. Usually there's a one or a single point person, single point of contact that manages your templates in-house. Consider branding all of your settings. So if you customize it in Revit, and this is going through the checklist, right? So if you go to your textiles, 1/4 inch, 3/32, 1/8, headers, titles, all your textiles and dimension styles, they should have your company initials in front of it. It should say ASTI or my company, ABC, whatever. You should brand it with your initials so that that is your custom standard. And anybody or any greenhorn or new user that's coming into your office that just got hired can look and see everything that has your company initial is kind of obvious that that's what you use as your company standard. Also, consider creating templates in the oldest version possible. I have 2016, I think, is the oldest on my computer. So anything that I do in mine, I do in 2016. And with the new features in the newer versions, you might want to manage the templates, or again, a template for each year. Create starting views. Again, they could really help open and close projects. Keep families to a minimum and load them as needed. Populate typical repeatable parameters in your families. So if you have custom families like we talked about, the door, custom window, and all those, if you're going to put them and you're going to customize them, fill out all the parameters or property information so that your schedules and all that stuff comes out correct, or it's already populated. You don't have to go in there and do twice the work, double the work. If it's typical, that's the chairs should be all denoted or marked CH dash whatever, then do that in the families, and then load those into your templates so that when your users get started, they're ahead of the game. You can use view templates to standardize a project quickly, again, is a best practice or benefit. And then, of course, set up standard schedules. So schedules in templates are huge. They can really save time. So some basic benefits of having a good template. You know, I've heard in the realm of 20 to 40% increase in productivity with the good, strong company template. So if you guys don't have one or not using one, and you guys have issues in house, and you just ask yourself these questions. You know, are we having problems with Revit, and we're having workflow issues, or there's roadblocks, or there's bumps in the road that we're not sure of where to go or what to do? You know, and if you don't have a template, that might be something to look at, right? So again, saves time, improves productivity, and you know, make sure that it makes sure or ensures with periodic updates that you know, you stay on top of things and you keep changing and you keep staying you know, on top of the latest and greatest, you know, standards. Now, some basic troubleshooting before we got cut loose again. This is something that I've seen since 2016 with installs and templates in Revit. They're not even there when you start Revit for the first time. So if you're a user and you haven't even opened up Revit, or you haven't used 2018 or 2017 yet, and you go to start practicing or playing in it, and it doesn't have any content, families, or templates or nothing, there's an issue or support issue out there. I would recommend Googling Revit templates and families not installed, and you can get to this tech doc, and it'll take you and show you what to do, or provide this to your solution specialist, your IT or CAD managers or whatever to help fix your systems. All right, so also to kind of let you guys know how we can help. You know, we provide expert BIM mentoring and training. We provide these types of services for creating templates. We've done this for multiple firms in the United States. Multiple techs have addressed you know, company templates. And you know, one of the good things, if you guys are still taking notes, is companies that had a good CAD set or a good CAD standard set of drawings, we were able to use that in our assessments to build their Revit template. So you might want to use that as well as the checklist to kind of see, okay, this is what we have in CAD and our standards. We use our checklist, and then we go into Revit, right? So you can use a combo. All right, questions?
Hey, so I got several questions here. Looking over the list, we got a number of people have asked this question. Brad, Sam, Christopher, asking if we can share that Excel spreadsheet. And to answer that question, we would need to check with our services manager just to double check that we can share that. But if we can, we will. Just that we have to check with our service manager. We don't know that right now, but we just need to check on that. Got a question here from Ismail. Are project template reverse compatible, or is it best to create templates in an earlier release and promote accordingly?
Exactly. Make it in the earliest release you have and promote accordingly.
Okay. Richard's got a good question. Are there any consequences to using a template that's been brought along from earlier versions but has just been upgraded each year?
Yes. Now, and it's not super, or yes and no, but in Revit 2017, the font styles have changed. We basically, we got the AutoCAD fonts in Revit, kind of. So what we've been asking for years, we've got, but now everybody's converted into Revit text, and that breaks. So there's some issues when it comes to upgrading with certain elements within the checklist or the templates. So beware, be cautious. I wouldn't upgrade from the very oldest version, like 16 directly to 18 and go and automatically jump into a project. I would kind of go year to year and then maybe start a new template for the new year and transfer project standards, which you can, into it and double check it all, right? So I don't know if that answered your question or not. I hope.
Yeah, we're running out of time here. We've got one last question here from Bradley. We've had a lot of issues with the 2017 text editor change. Maybe that's what you're just talking about. Any template created in prior versions have issues with text size when using 27 later. Any thought on how to make this transition easier?
You just have to start from scratch in 2018 or 17 with those fonts. Just, I mean, it's not, you know, you're basically just recreating the styles, redefining them, you know, with the right fonts, the right information. It's a little tedious, but if you do it in your templates, you know, and you use this checklist, you should be fine. I know it's extra work, but you know, it's worth it.
So we've run out of time here. Sorry, I got some questions from Martha, John, and Ray, and Iva. Sorry, we won't be able to get those. We'll answer those questions after this session. But I know we try to be time sensitive, so we're going to cut off the questions here. Gabe, any last comments before I wrap it up?
Yes, real quick. Somebody asked about the checklist, our Excel one, but and we're going to check on being able to share that with you guys. But for now, if you guys are seeing on my screen, I don't know, can you see that? I have pulled up a Google web page. It's Revit Architecture Template Checklist. Google it. There's an Autodesk version of it, and it's not an Excel spreadsheet, but it's just kind of where I do all my research. This is the best Revit book there is, right? You go to the knowledge base, go to the help, and it's all there. Here's a good one for architecture. I know not for structure or MEP, but this is a good one for architecture, and you can use this as a good go-by for you guys that are engineers to take what's similar in your discipline and what's not. What's architecture you could just leave out, like door and window families.